Snow fell softly over Denver International Airport, creating a scene that looked more like a holiday postcard than a busy travel hub. Despite the beautiful drifts forming on the windows, inside, the air was thick with tension. Families with cranky toddlers and business travelers with laptops all jockeyed for space, desperate to keep track of gate changes and delays. Among the restless travelers stood Rachel Adams, a 32-year-old marketing manager who prided herself on being calm and organized, at least on a normal day. Today, however, nothing felt normal. She clutched a steaming cup of coffee in one gloved hand, her smartphone in the other, juggling endless emails about a massive client presentation she had scheduled in Houston. If this flight got delayed any further, her entire career-shifting pitch could be in jeopardy. Rachel exhaled loudly and tapped her heel on the tiled floor. She wore an expensive wool coat over her tailored pantsuit, but even that couldn't protect her from the anxious jitters coursing through her. The overhead speaker crackled with another announcement. Flight 281 to Houston is now boarding first-class passengers. Finally, Rachel muttered, grabbing her roller suitcase and hustling toward the jet bridge. She checked her boarding pass, seat 2A, first class, which she had upgraded using her own credit card. She wanted comfort on this important trip. Inside the plane, rows of seats stretched out in front of Rachel. First class felt like its own peaceful bubble with spacious seats and overhead compartments that actually had room. She heaved her carry-on into the bin, settled into 2A, and draped her coat over her lap. Just as she took out her phone to sneak a look at her emails, Rachel heard footsteps. A tall black soldier in uniform approached, scanning the seat numbers. The name tag on his chest read Sec. M. Williams. He paused near Rachel. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said politely. "I think 2B is my seat." Rachel forced a tight smile. Deep down, she was irritated, though she wouldn't have admitted why. Some part of her believed soldiers got seats like these on special deals, while she had to fork over a chunk of her paycheck. "I see," she said, shifting her knees to let him pass. He placed his small backpack in the overhead bin, then sat carefully beside her. At that moment, a flight attendant glided by with a friendly smile. "Oh, Sergeant Williams," the attendant said, eyes lighting up. "Thank you for your service. Please let us know if you need anything." Rachel bristled. She wasn't exactly against the military, but she disliked what she called undeserved perks. Letting out a small sigh, she whispered under her breath, "Must be nice to get all this free attention." The soldier looked her way, obviously hearing her remark, but instead of snapping back, he offered a gentle nod. "I appreciate the kindness, miss," he said quietly. "I'm just trying to get home." Rachel heard a note of sadness in his voice, but her own stress overshadowed it. She typed an email on her phone, fingers jabbing the screen harder than necessary. Eventually, the plane taxied onto the runway and soared into the cloudy sky. The captain announced the flight time to Houston would be about 2 hours, weather permitting. Rachel tried to distract herself from nerves by reading through her meeting agenda. Halfway through the flight attendants served drinks and small plates of warm nuts. Rachel asked for a cranberry juice, hoping to stay alert rather than doze off with wine. That's cheat. Williams politely declined any alcohol, merely asking for water. The attendant, noticing his uniform, once again said, "Sergeant, if there's anything you'd like, just let me know, okay?" Rachel's irritation flared. She forced a stiff smile at the flight attendant, but, once the woman had moved on, turned sharply to Sedge. "Williams, don't you ever get tired of people fussing over you all the time?" she blurted. He looked surprised. "Excuse me." "You know, all these freebies," she continued, crossing her arms. "Thanking you for your service, letting you board early, upgraded seats." "That's cheat." William's expression stayed calm, but Rachel could see the flicker of hurt in his eyes. "Miss, I pay for this seat myself," he said evenly. "I had no idea the airline was going to let me board early. They often do that for soldiers, but that doesn't mean I asked for it." Rachel shrugged as if she didn't believe him. "Right," she murmured. Inside, she felt uneasy, unsure why she was picking a fight with a total stranger. She masked that discomfort with sarcasm. "Anyway, I guess you all have some special arrangement with the airlines or something." Marcus Williams paused, gently setting down his cup of water. "Ma'am," he began, "I know not everyone understands, but trust me, there's no magical upgrade. I just got lucky finding a seat up here during the busy season." Rachel shifted away, ending the conversation with a curt nod. She noticed him pull out a small family photo from his pocket. A boy with big brown eyes, hooked to an IV line, smiled bravely at the camera. A spark of curiosity flared in Rachel. Why did the boy look so frail? But she stifled the feeling. "Not my business," she told herself. As soon as the plane landed in Houston, Rachel leaped out of her seat, practically racing down the aisle. She didn't want to make small talk or exchange pleasantries. She had her own life to worry about. Outside the terminal, she got into a taxi that would take her to a high-end hotel. In the cab, rain pattered against the windows, turning into slush. Rachel scrolled through her phone, confirming the time and place for tomorrow's meeting. Her entire future at the firm seemed to hinge on how well she pitched a new marketing strategy. A promotion to vice president felt just within reach. Yet she couldn't shake the memory of Ted Williams's quiet politeness, or the photo of that sick little boy. A twinge of guilt pricked at her. She had been cold, maybe even rude. But deep down, a part of her insisted, "I'm under a lot of pressure. I don't have time to worry about strangers' problems." The taxi reached the hotel. Rachel stepped inside the lobby, which was dazzling with golden light and huge planters filled with tropical flowers. After a fast check-in, she went up to her room, set her suitcase by the bed, and began fine-tuning her presentation slides, trying to push the soldier out of her mind. The next morning came too quickly. Rachel woke up to her phone alarm beeping. The gloom of the rain outside set a tired mood, but she had no choice. It was showtime. She pulled on a sleek navy blazer, quickly did her makeup, and switched on the TV for background noise as she packed her briefcase. Suddenly, her head snapped up at the words, "Local hero recognized for saving lives overseas." She turned, eyes glued to the small TV screen in her room. A news anchor, speaking in a serious tone, said, "Sergeant Marcus Williams, who just landed in Houston yesterday, is best known for his brave efforts during a humanitarian mission in Southeast Asia. He rescued 8 children trapped under storm debris after a massive typhoon. Now, Sgt. Williams is back in the States to help his own family. His 7-year-old son, Isaiah, suffers from a rare heart condition and needs urgent medical care." The screen showed a photo of the same little boy Rachel had glimpsed on the plane. The reporter explained how the upcoming surgery was expensive and not fully covered by Sgt. Williams's insurance. The family had set up a modest fundraiser, hoping the local community could help bridge the gap. A lump formed in Rachel's throat. She felt a sinking feeling as she recalled how harshly she'd judged him, how she'd insinuated he was mooching off others. Far from mooching, he'd risked his life to save people in a disaster zone, and now he was trying desperately to save his own son. Rachel's face burned with shame. She scrambled for the remote, turning the volume higher. A short interview clip flashed on screen, showing Marcus speaking outside a children's hospital. He wore the same uniform from the plane, his face drawn with worry. "All I want is for my boy to have a chance at a normal life," he said. "I'm grateful for any support, but I'm not here to ask for special favors. I just want my son to get the care he needs." Rachel sank onto the bed. Her heart pounded, and tears pricked the corners of her eyes. This man was a hero, and she had treated him like trash. Guilt overwhelmed her so suddenly that she nearly forgot she was late for her meeting. After a moment, she grabbed her laptop bag and rushed out the door, her mind swirling with regret. Though her morning meeting went smoothly on the surface, her boss praised her polished presentation. Rachel felt only a numb sort of triumph. All she could think about was the look on Williams's face when she'd snapped at him. Every time a colleague congratulated her, she offered a weak smile and turned away. By early afternoon, she couldn't focus anymore. She looked up the children's hospital mentioned in the news segment. A quick search confirmed that Isaiah Williams was being treated at Houston Children's Medical Center. Without fully understanding why, Rachel left the office building, ignoring her co-workers' questions. She hailed a taxi and gave the driver the hospital address. Inside the bustling hospital lobby, the scent of disinfectant and the steady hum of families milling about made Rachel uneasy. She approached a receptionist's desk, her heart pounding in her ears. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I'm looking for Sergeant Marcus Williams or his son Isaiah." I believe he's here for a heart procedure." The receptionist typed on her computer. "Yes, Isaiah Williams. He's in the pediatric wing, floor 3, room 321. Are you family?" Rachel hesitated, then mumbled, "Just a friend." She was unsure if she even deserved that word, but the receptionist nodded and directed her to sign in for a visitor's badge. Clutching the badge, Rachel rode the elevator up to the 3rd floor. Every beep of the elevator seemed to echo her guilty heartbeat. When the doors opened, bright murals of dolphins and balloons adorned the hallway, a stark contrast to her churning anxiety. She found room 321. Through the small window, she saw the soldier from the plane. He sat on a chair beside the bed, gently reading a story to a little boy hooked up to monitors. Even from a distance, Rachel recognized the boy as the same one in the photo. Isaiah's dark curly hair and big eyes matched the picture, though he looked thin and tired. Summoning courage, Rachel knocked softly on the door. "Test sheet." Williams stopped reading and looked up. Shock flickered across his face when he recognized her. "You," he murmured, carefully setting aside the storybook. "From the flight?" Rachel nodded, feeling her cheeks flush. She stepped inside, shutting the door gently behind her. Her gaze darted to Isaiah, who watched with curiosity. "I'm sorry," she blurted, tears threatening to spill. "I saw the news story about you last night and realized how I was so rude and unfair. I didn't know." Marcus rose slowly, confusion and hurt in his eyes. "Miss, you were pretty upset on that plane. I didn't think I'd see you again." Rachel swallowed hard. "My name is Rachel Adams," she said, "and I came here because I wanted to apologize. I was wrong to judge you. I'm sorry for everything I said." Isaiah looked at his dad, then at Rachel, a small frown creasing his brow. "Daddy, is she a friend?" Marcus hesitated. "We only met once, Isaiah," he said gently, "on the airplane." Rachel offered a smile she hoped looked friendly. "I want to be a friend now, if that's okay." Then she turned to Marcus. "I saw the news report about how you rescued those kids after the typhoon and how you're here for Isaiah's surgery. I had no idea you were going through such a tough time." Marcus's stance softened slightly. His shoulders dropped. "To be honest, it hasn't been easy," he admitted. "Isaiah has a rare heart defect. We're grateful the hospital can do the surgery, but insurance only covers part of it. The rest is on me to figure out." A painful silence followed. Rachel inhaled slowly, mustering the courage to speak again. "I know it won't erase what I did, but I'd like to help. I could at least donate to your fundraiser." Marcus studied her face. The wariness in his eyes didn't vanish completely. "I appreciate the offer," he said quietly, "but I'm not asking for handouts." "I know," she replied, voice trembling. "I want to help anyway. Not because I pity you, but because—" She paused, fighting tears. "Because I realize I was so wrong." A rustle in the bed pulled their attention. Isaiah coughed a little and reached for the plastic cup of water on the table. Rachel moved closer, gently handing it to him. He thanked her in a soft voice. "Does it hurt a lot?" Rachel asked, nodding at the tubes. Isaiah gave a small nod. "Sometimes it hurts in my chest, But the doctor said the surgery will make me feel better. I just want to go outside and play basketball again. Rachel felt her heart clench. She thought of her own nephew back home, healthy and energetic, playing ball in the driveway. Isaiah deserved that same chance. She turned back to Marcus, her eyes reflecting genuine concern. Is there anything you need? Someone to help run errands? Paperwork? Anything at all? Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. I've been trying to juggle phone calls with the insurance company, scheduling tests, and managing the fundraiser. It's a lot, especially since I'm still on partial leave from my duties. Rachel seized the opportunity. Let me help with the fundraiser, she said. I work in marketing. I can at least make the campaign more visible. Marcus exhaled, a hint of reluctant gratitude crossing his face. All right, he said eventually. We could use more exposure. The link is up online, but I don't know much about social media or promoting these things. A small smile tugged at Rachel's lips. That's something I can do, she offered, if you trust me. Marcus looked at Isaiah, who managed a tired smile. Then he turned back to Rachel. We'll give it a shot, he said quietly. Thank you. Over the next few days, Rachel found her entire focus shifting. She still had her marketing job, but whenever she wasn't in a meeting, she was on her phone or laptop, working on the Help Isaiah Heal campaign. She built a simple yet eye-catching webpage, updated donation links, and wrote heartfelt paragraphs about Isaiah's story. All the while, she visited the hospital regularly. Each time, she brought a small gift, a puzzle, a book, or a silly cartoon DVD for Isaiah. Slowly, the boy warmed up to her. He began smiling when she walked in, telling her about the cartoons he liked or how much he missed his friends back home in San Diego. Marcus watched quietly. Sometimes he seemed unsure how to handle Rachel's presence, given their rocky start, but he couldn't deny that she was pouring her energy into helping. One afternoon, after Rachel brought fresh fruit and extra blankets, Marcus caught up to her in the hallway. You don't have to do all this, you know, he said softly. It's a lot of time and effort. She shrugged. I want to. And I need to. She looked away, her eyes brimming with lingering guilt. I said some terrible things. I judged you without knowing anything about you. Working on this fundraiser, maybe it's my way of making it right. Marcus folded his arms, glancing at the scuffed linoleum floor. I appreciate your honesty, he said. I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt, the things you said, but I also see you trying now, and it helps more than you know. Rachel felt a weight lift from her chest. She gave a small nod of thanks before heading off to speak with a nurse about Isaiah's next round of tests. As the fundraiser slowly climbed, more donations began trickling in, $20 here, $50 there, sometimes $100. Rachel used social media to share the link, and her co-workers donated generously. A few local businesses offered to help, and the total inched closer to what the hospital required as a down payment for Isaiah's surgery. But time was running short. Isaiah's doctors insisted the procedure happen in a few weeks, while his condition was stable enough to operate. Rachel worked late into the night, sending out emails and contacting local news outlets to highlight Isaiah's situation. One evening, she returned to her hotel exhausted, with barely enough energy to order room service. As she sipped tea by the window, she thought about her past. She'd grown up in a mostly white suburb, hearing subtle remarks about how those people always looked for a free ride. She never realized how those ideas had rooted themselves deep inside her, influencing her snap judgments. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She knew she couldn't change the past, but maybe she could change the future by choosing empathy and understanding instead. The day before Isaiah's scheduled surgery, the Children's Hospital permitted him a short trip in a wheelchair to see the courtyard garden. Rachel accompanied Marcus, carefully navigating the winding paths as Isaiah gazed at the flowers. He asked, Miss Rachel, will you come see me after my surgery too? Her heart clenched with warmth. Of course, Isaiah, she said gently. We're going to celebrate when you feel better. Maybe we'll find a basketball hoop nearby, And you can show me your moves. Isaiah grinned, even though he looked weak. Marcus placed a hand on Rachel's shoulder. "Thank you for being here," he whispered. "It means a lot to him." Rachel's eyes stung with tears. She nodded, unable to find the right words. Meanwhile, the fundraiser had reached nearly 80% of its goal, a significant sum, but still short of the total needed. Rachel refused to give up. That night, she used her marketing connections and orchestrated a last-minute push, contacting a local radio station that sometimes highlighted community stories. To her delight, the station agreed to do a brief interview with Marcus on the morning of the surgery, rallying listeners to donate. Morning arrived all too soon. Isaiah was prepped for surgery at 6 a.m., the hospital corridors felt colder than usual, and Rachel could barely eat. Marcus stayed by Isaiah's side until the surgical team wheeled him into the operating room. The nurse shut the double doors gently, leaving Marcus and Rachel in a quiet hallway. The next 4 hours were some of the longest in Rachel's life. She and Marcus sat in a small waiting lounge designed for families, brightly painted walls, uncomfortable chairs, a TV that played kids' cartoons. Marcus alternated between pacing and sitting in tense silence. Rachel tried to distract him with updates on the fundraiser, but he could only nod absent-mindedly. She felt her own heart hammering in her chest, imagining the fear a father must feel when his child's life hangs in the balance. Every so often, a nurse poked her head in to say, "They're still working," or "He's stable for now." Each time, Marcus exhaled shakily, and Rachel squeezed his hand in silent solidarity. Finally, around noon, a surgeon wearing scrubs and a hairnet walked into the waiting room. Marcus sprang to his feet, nearly tripping over the coffee table. Rachel's heart pounded so loudly that she couldn't hear anything else. Isaiah's surgery went as expected, the surgeon said, voice calm but tinged with relief. "We managed to repair the defect. The next 48 hours are critical, but we're optimistic." Marcus gripped the surgeon's hand. "Thank you," he choked out, tears filling his eyes. Rachel felt her own tears sliding down her cheeks. The wave of relief was so strong she thought she might collapse. Isaiah was moved to the ICU, still unconscious, but breathing with the help of machines. Over the next 2 days, Rachel and Marcus kept vigil by his bedside. Marcus barely slept, dozing in a plastic chair whenever exhaustion overcame him. Rachel brought him coffee, warm meals, and sometimes just a comforting word. On the second evening, a nurse guided them in, carefully speaking to Isaiah to see if he would respond. His eyelids fluttered, and though his voice was weak, he managed, "Dad, Miss Rachel." Marcus rushed to his side. "Hey, buddy, you're doing great." Rachel gently touched the back of his hand. "You're so strong, Isaiah. We're right here." Isaiah smiled, though it was small. "Does this mean I can play basketball soon?" They all laughed softly, relieved laughter that carried a mixture of tears and hope. "One step at a time," said Marcus, pressing a gentle kiss to his son's forehead. By the time Isaiah was moved to a regular recovery room, the fundraiser had soared past its initial goal, thanks to the radio coverage and a flood of online donations. Marcus marveled at the generosity pouring in from strangers, and Rachel felt a quiet sense of pride that she'd helped make it happen. One afternoon, while Isaiah slept, Rachel and Marcus strolled down the hospital corridor to get some fresh air. They stopped by a large window overlooking the cityscape. Houston's skyline gleamed in the midday sun. Marcus turned to Rachel. "I owe you an apology," he began, surprising her. She blinked. "For what?" "I was angry at you," he admitted. "When you first spoke to me on the plane, I kept thinking about how people see the uniform but not the person. I didn't expect you to come back and do all of this, and I'm sorry I assumed you wouldn't change." Rachel bit her lip, tears stinging her eyes again. "I don't blame you at all. I deserved your anger. It's something I'm still working on. Those ideas I grew up around, the prejudice I carried without even realizing it. I'm so sorry." Marcus placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You've shown me a different side of yourself now, and I appreciate it. Sometimes people do change. He paused, looking out the window. Don't beat yourself up forever. Just keep moving forward. Isaiah's condition improved steadily over the following weeks. Once his doctors cleared him, they recommended a few more days in Houston for follow-up appointments before he could travel back home. Rachel offered to help the family find a temporary apartment or a hotel that could accommodate Isaiah's needs. One day, she visited them and found Isaiah laughing at a silly YouTube video. He immediately paused it when he saw her. "Miss Rachel," he exclaimed, face lighting up. "Look what Dad got me." He held up a small foam basketball hoop that could attach to the wall. "We play inside now, but Dad says soon I'll get to play on a real court." Rachel's eyes sparkled with joy. "That's amazing," she said, ruffling his hair gently. Then, turning to Marcus, she handed him a folder. "I made a list of short-term rentals that might be quieter and cheaper than a hotel. I also spoke to some folks at my company. We have a corporate program that might cover some of your stay if you want." Marcus opened the folder, astonished. "Rachel, you really went above and beyond." She gave a modest shrug. "I just want to make sure Isaiah recovers without extra stress. I might have some connections, but it's the least I can do after." She trailed off, letting the memory of their first encounter go unspoken. A few days later, as Isaiah wrapped up his last checkup, Rachel waited in the hospital cafeteria with a cup of tea. Marcus joined her, looking tired but grateful. She noticed the lines of stress around his eyes, but also a calmer warmth that hadn't been there before. "I have some news," she said, taking a breath. "My company wants to launch a new charitable initiative to help military families dealing with medical emergencies. They've asked me to lead it." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Really? That's fantastic." "It feels like the right thing to do," Rachel continued. "I know I can't fix every problem, but maybe this is a way I can do more good. It might mean traveling around to set up partnerships with hospitals and charities, but I want to take it on." She hesitated, searching his face. "I hope that's okay. I don't want to intrude on your life." Marcus exhaled a soft laugh. "It's more than okay. If your company does something like that, it'll help a lot of families just like mine. You're not intruding, Rachel. You're helping us make real change." She felt a wave of relief flood her. "I'm so glad you said that. I've been worried, about stepping over a line or making you feel uncomfortable." He shook his head. "Look, you apologized, and then you proved your sincerity with action. That's something I respect. Don't worry so much." The day arrived for Isaiah to leave the hospital. He still moved slowly, and the doctor gave strict instructions about rest and follow-up visits, but the bright grin on the boy's face showed he was thrilled to be out of the medical environment. Rachel joined Marcus in guiding Isaiah to the elevator, carrying extra medical supplies in a paper bag. Once they reached the hospital's main lobby, Isaiah saw a small display of balloons. His eyes lit up. "Dad, can I have a balloon?" Marcus reached for his wallet, but before he could pull it out, Rachel hurried over to the gift shop booth. She returned with a shiny, bright blue balloon, handing it to Isaiah. He giggled, holding it close. A few passers-by recognized Marcus from the news and offered well wishes. One woman even said, "Thank you for your service, Sergeant," and gave Isaiah a thumbs up. Isaiah giggled again, proud of his dad. Outside, the Houston sunshine felt warm and comforting. Rachel inhaled the fresh air. She watched Marcus carefully help Isaiah into the back seat of a small rental car. Then, turning to Rachel, he said, "We're off to the apartment you helped us find. The doctor said to come back in a week for a checkup, and then we should be okay to fly home." Rachel nodded. Her chest tightened at the thought that they might be leaving soon. She found that a big part of her wanted to keep seeing them, keep helping them. "I'll be in town a bit longer," she said. "But once you head home, I promise I'll stay in touch and keep you updated on the charitable initiative." Marcus's gaze softened. He glanced at Isaiah, who was tugging gently on the balloon string in the backseat. Then he faced Rachel again. "You can visit us in San Diego when we're settled," he offered, voice quiet but sincere. "Isaiah would love to show you around. And well, you're part of our lives now." Rachel's heart lifted. "I'd love that," she whispered. "Thank you." That evening, in her hotel room, Rachel gazed out the window at the city lights. She replayed the events of the past week in her mind. Her cruel remarks on the plane, the shock of seeing the news, her decision to reach out, and the bond she now shared with Marcus and Isaiah. She shuddered to imagine what might have happened if she had never seen that news broadcast. She would have remained oblivious to her prejudice, continuing her life as if she were blameless. Instead, life gave her a wake-up call. Though she couldn't erase that first moment of racism, she realized that healing was possible through genuine remorse and consistent action. She had learned more about compassion in these past few weeks than she had in years of marketing seminars and corporate networking events. The day came when Isaiah and Marcus were cleared to head back to their home in San Diego. Rachel drove to their temporary apartment to help them pack. She found Isaiah carefully tucking in a stuffed bear, which the hospital staff had gifted him. They shared one last meal together in Houston at a cozy diner down the street. Isaiah insisted on having chocolate milk, slurping it with a wide smile. Rachel couldn't stop smiling too. Marcus teased his son about the day he'd be able to dunk a basketball. Every so often, Rachel felt a tug of sadness, knowing they'd soon part ways. At the airport, they hugged goodbye at the security checkpoint. Marcus gave Rachel a firm handshake, then pulled her into a brief, warm hug. "Keep doing what you're doing," he said, voice thick with emotion. "You're making a difference." Isaiah wrapped his arms around her waist. "Thank you for my balloon and everything else," he said, face pressed into her coat. "Come visit me, okay?" "I promise," she whispered, blinking away tears. "You stay strong. Listen to your dad and the doctors." Once they disappeared through security, Rachel stood there a moment, her eyes damp but her heart full. A month ago, she never would have imagined forging such a bond with a family she once dismissed so harshly. But life had changed her, in the best possible way. In the weeks that followed, Rachel returned to her marketing firm with renewed passion. She pitched a new philanthropic branch, focusing on helping military families with medical emergencies. Her bosses loved the idea. They quickly tasked her with building a blueprint, forging partnerships, and reaching out to hospital networks. Rachel dove into the project wholeheartedly, remembering Isaiah's brave smile and Marcus's unwavering devotion. Whenever she faced a challenge, like sorting through corporate budgets or persuading stubborn executives, she thought of how Marcus had persevered through far greater trials. That gave her strength. They kept in contact through phone calls and text messages. Sometimes, Marcus would send a photo of Isaiah playing with a small basketball hoop, each day looking healthier. Rachel always smiled at how bright the boy's grin was. But it wasn't all easy. There were nights Rachel lay awake, replaying the day she met Marcus on the plane. She'd cringe at the memory of her own words. Occasionally, she even had dreams about the flight, feeling the tension in the cramped seat. Yet, each time she woke up, she reminded herself, the best way to overcome her past is to keep moving forward with an open heart and open mind. A couple of months later, after many planning calls and board meetings for her charitable initiative, Rachel finally booked a flight to San Diego. She had to meet with some local charities there, and she really wanted to see Marcus and Isaiah again. When she arrived at the address Marcus had texted her, she found a modest house with a cheerful blue door and a small yard. Isaiah spotted her from a window and dashed outside, arms wide open. He wore a t-shirt featuring his favorite superhero, and he looked stronger than ever. "Miss Rachel," he shouted, charging straight into her arms. "We have a basketball hoop at the park now, and I can shoot from really far." Rachel laughed, overjoyed at his excitement. She stood, adjusting her purse strap, and looked around. Marcus emerged, smiling wide. "Welcome to our home," he said. "Glad you made it." They spent the day together, visiting a local park. Isaiah amazed Rachel by tossing up a few shots. He still got tired quickly, but his energy was a huge improvement from the frail boy she'd met in the hospital. That evening, they grilled burgers in the backyard. Some of Marcus's relatives dropped by, greeting Rachel warmly and thanking her for her help. At one point, an aunt pulled Rachel aside to quietly say, "We know things between you and Marcus started off rocky, but you've been a blessing to Isaiah. Thank you." Rachel felt tears well up. She gave a small nod, gratitude swelling in her chest. This family had every reason to resent her, but instead, they welcomed her with kindness. She resolved never again to let prejudice poison her judgments. As night fell, fireflies danced in the backyard, and the hum of distant traffic provided a soft soundtrack. Marcus, Rachel, and Isaiah sat on the back steps, gazing at the stars. Isaiah was tired from the day's excitement, leaning on his dad's arm. Marcus looked at Rachel, a thoughtful expression on his face. "It's strange how life works," he said, voice gentle. "If we hadn't shared that flight, if you hadn't seen the news, we'd never have gotten to this place." Rachel nodded. "I've thought about that so many times. It's like a wake-up call I didn't realize I needed. I was too focused on myself, my job, my stress. I never took a moment to see people's stories behind the scenes." They sat in silence for a moment, the cool air wrapping around them. Then Isaiah yawned, blinking sleepily. Marcus ruffled his son's hair. "Time for bed, little man," he said. "And Miss Rachel, you're welcome to stay for as long as you need." Rachel felt her heart fill. "Thank you," she said softly, "for letting me be a part of your family's journey." Isaiah gave her a sleepy grin and mumbled, "Night, Miss Rachel," before Marcus scooped him up and carried him inside. Left alone on the steps, Rachel looked up at the stars, reflecting on how this entire situation had taught her to be kinder, humbler, and more open-hearted. She knew she couldn't magically erase the old biases she once carried, but she could choose every day to do better, to lift others up and to see them for who they truly were. Over the following months and years, Rachel's new role in her company's military family support initiative flourished. She traveled around the country, connecting with hospitals and charities, often telling Isaiah's story, with Marcus's permission, as an example of how community support can save a child's life. Her speeches were earnest, infused with the real empathy she had gained from seeing the Williams family's struggles firsthand. Marcus continued to serve, balancing his duties with caring for Isaiah, who grew stronger each day. Doctors were thrilled with his progress, calling him a walking miracle. And each time Rachel visited, she found a bigger, braver boy waiting to show off new basketball tricks or share funny jokes. People who heard their story were often shocked to learn it started with Rachel's prejudice and an argument on a plane. But that was the raw truth. Sometimes, a painful beginning can open the door to an incredible transformation. Rachel embraced this lesson, reminding herself that every person carries hidden battles, and a little compassion can bridge even the widest divides. In the end, the flight that began with harsh words and assumptions led to a life-changing friendship. Rachel learned that while she couldn't undo her past behavior, she could decide to move forward with empathy and understanding. And for Aschit, Marcus Williams and his son Isaiah, meeting Rachel meant finding an unexpected ally who would stand with them through their darkest hour, lighting a way to hope. No one would ever wish for a cruel encounter, but in this case, it sparked a journey that changed all their lives for the better, proving once again that our biggest mistakes can sometimes lead us to discover the greatest truths about kindness, unity, and the power of second chances.